Animals Exposed Week, right here on Animal Planet.
They're big. They're bad. And they're proof that sometimes size does matter.
A bunch of guys in suits fighting each other and destroying it. It's always fun.
I've always been a fan of Godzilla.
Get ready for the fiery history behind Japan's most unforgettable monsters and the filmmakers who brought them to outrageous life.
You give it your all. It's... Get out of here! Get out of here!
It's time for the explosive story behind Godzilla, Rodan, and all the other legendary beasts from the East. On Animal Icons, it came from Japan.
Astounding beyond belief, the mightiest monster of them all.
During the mid-1950s, the Japanese science fiction classic Godzilla gave audiences around the world a new symbol of big-screen terror, a 160-foot fire-breathing behemoth who became the first in a series of memorable Japanese movie monsters. Audiences of the 1950s, caught up in post-war fears about the atomic bomb, were astounded by Godzilla's chilling story and unforgettable title character.
Godzilla, king of the monsters. Fantastic beyond comprehension.
The original Japanese version of Godzilla, released in 1954, was really born out of the horrors of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan. I think it was a way of the country to come to terms with this horrible legacy that they had to live with.
Since his debut, Godzilla and his creature co-stars have gone on to make a giant imprint on the entire world. Their fans include such top Hollywood directors as Steven Spielberg, Tim Burton, and John Carpenter, who considers the original Godzilla one of the most influential films he's ever seen.
It all inspired every kid in that era who had a camera to make movies like it. I had a little puppet dinosaur like you see behind me on the shelf. I move it around, animated it. I built a monster. Yeah, very influential.
I remember as a kid, you know, it's part of your growing up in New York. You'd see it every Saturday morning on TV. It's an icon of horror that you just, you know, you gotta sort of love it.
Japanese movie monsters have also become giants of commercial advertising. Godzilla's likeness can be found on everything from t-shirts and calendars to action figures and video games. And fans like California-based collector John Carpenter have devoured every product on the market.
I know I've gotten carried away with buying so many Godzilla toys. I just can't help it. They look great. Every time I see something new, I just gotta have it.
Without a doubt, Godzilla has always stayed a step ahead of the Japanese monster pack when it comes to popularity. And over the years, audiences have watched his surprising transformation from city-crushing bad guy to a kid-friendly superhero who's become a symbol of strength in his native Japan.
Even if he's not, you know, wearing a cape and, you know, defending the US of A, or Japan in his case, he's really acting on behalf of the planet, and he's sort of this reluctant superhero type.
It's lasted so long with sequel after sequel, it's become generational. Some Godzilla fans are children of Godzilla fans.
Godzilla, Godzilla.
I think it's something that could be genetic.
Japanese monsters like Godzilla first began their evolution onto movie screens back in 1954, a time when Japan's film industry, like the nation itself, was rebuilding after the country's crushing defeat in World War II.
Toho Studios The birthplace of Godzilla is kind of like the Warner Brothers of Japan, and they were one of the major studios, and they were willing to try new and innovative things. One of the ways they did that was during World War II. They actually were heavy into the production of war films using elaborate miniatures and elaborate special effects.
But after 1945, war movies were forbidden in Japan, and it was up to filmmakers like producer Tomoyuki Tanaka to take the nation's film industry in a new direction.
In 1954, a co-production fell through at the last minute. Tomo was flying back home from Indonesia, and as the story goes, he was looking down at the water, and he came up with this idea for a giant monster movie.
Tanaka took a cue from the response to a recent re-release of the motion picture classic King Kong and the current Hollywood hit, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yes, it could happen. For various authorities believe that buried somewhere under the polar ice cap, in a state of suspended animation, are the awesome creatures, the leviathans that roamed the earth at the dawn of time. A nuclear explosion could free one from his icy tomb.
Tomoyuki Tanaka decided to combine the concept of a beast on the loose with the realistic horror of the recent bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. During the Second World War, 2 atomic bombs had killed nearly 300,000 civilians, events that remained a vivid memory for the people of Japan.
Japan was the only nation up to that point which had experienced atomic bombing. So the people of Japan were very, very fearful of atomic radiation.
There was an incident in the news in Japan at the time that was very influential on Tanaka's idea. There was a fishing boat called the Lucky Dragon. They wandered a little too close to the Pacific Proving Grounds, the atomic testing zone at the Marshall Islands. On the morning of March 1 of '54, the biggest H-bomb test in the U.S. Nuclear program's history was conducted, and the fishing boat was irradiated, and all the crew members got sick, and when they came back to Japan, actually one of them died, and it became a huge international incident. Tanaka said, "Look what's going on. What if a giant monster were reawakened by these nuclear tests? What if that monster came ashore and attacked Tokyo? Let's make a film about it."
Toho executives were excited by the idea, and to direct the picture, they turned to Ishiro Honda, a former assistant director to legendary filmmaker Akira Kurosawa.
Ishiro Honda was the best choice because he had this documentary-like style which lent itself perfectly to the somber quality of the film. He had traveled through the wreckage of Hiroshima on his way back to Japan after the war ended, and he witnessed firsthand the destruction that the bomb had wrought.
To design the beast's reptilian features, art director Akira Watanabe combined magazine illustrations to create an imaginative blend of several real-life dinosaurs.
Godzilla is a carnivorous bipedal dinosaur. You know, it's based on a theropod, which is the term we would use for that kind of an organism, like T-Rex or Allosaurus. The only thing really, really weird about it is it has the spikes along the back of the body. Now we know that most of the animals that have spikes were in fact herbivorous dinosaurs, not carnivores. So there's some poetic liberty being taken there, you know, about putting the spikes on it.
His fins glowed and he breathed fire, which was really cool. So immediately he was sort of like a mythical creature, like a fire-breathing dragon.
But the filmmakers still needed to come up with a fitting name for this angry green giant from the sea.
The Japanese word was Gojira, which is a combination of their word for gorilla and whale, which is Kujira. So this was Godzilla. It was the concept of this gorilla whale. Well, of course, it doesn't look like a gorilla or a whale. It's a dinosaur.
With his crew in place, producer Tomoyuki Tanaka was ready to begin filming on a story that was destined to become bigger than any of them ever imagined. When Animal Icons returns, Godzilla suits up to make his mark in movie history.